Before we begin today's video, I'd just like to remind folks that I run a Twitch channel. I use my Twitch to stream games, quizzes, countdowns, Q&As, and much more. So please make sure to follow me on Twitch to be notified every time I go live. Howdy folks, Jamboriki here, and welcome to another episode of Jamboriki Orange, the show where I let my patrons decide what I review. The options for this episode included Minions: The Rise of Gru, Spy Kids, Pokemon Heroes, Casper: A Spirited Beginning, DC League of Super Pets, and My Father's Dragon. When young Casper wakes up as a ghost on an underworld train, he tries asking for help, but a passenger throws him off, and he lands in Deedstown, a quaint community full of people who keep running away from Casper on sight. Meanwhile, the mayor has asked a man called Tim to take care of demolishing the local Applegate mansion to make way for a shopping mall. However, it's not easy when the ghostly trio of Stinky, Stretch, and Fatso keep scaring construction workers away, and teacher Sheila Fistograph is leading a protest against said destruction. Tim is also struggling to raise his son, Chris, as a single father, because the mayor has given him so much work to do. One day, a lonely Chris bumps into Casper. They become instant friends, and Chris introduces Casper to the ghostly trio to help him become a scary ghost. Back at the scare school, the big mighty Gabosh is angered to hear about the ghostly trio teaching illegal lessons to Casper, and he asks his minion Sniffly to keep an eye on things. At the same time, Tim decides to resort to hiring a quirky military enthusiast called Bill Case to blow up the mansion for him. I will say this about this prequel. I did think that Casper was more likable here than he ever was in the 1995 movie. Yes, the bar was set pretty low, seeing how creepy he was in that film.
Cat? Can I keep you?
But out of every character in Spirited Beginning, Casper was the only one I came close to sympathizing with. This little boy who has suddenly died and is struggling to find himself in the afterlife.
Seems I'm too nice to learn anything. So, I'm not a human. I'm not a ghost. I'm a nothing.
Sure, I could criticize him for taking his hauntings too far at points, or for being biased in the whole father-son conflict, but he's a saint compared to every other character in this train wreck. As a prequel, A Spirited Beginning doesn't really offer much. Like, if you want to watch this film to gain a deeper understanding of Casper, or check out some kind of exciting backstory, then you'll be deeply disappointed. All that happens is that Stinky, Stretch, and Fatso fail to teach Casper to be scary, so Chris teaches him to use his ghost powers instead. Then Casper realizes that he can use these powers for good, and he's now Casper the Friendly Ghost for the rest of the film. It's the bare minimum you'd expect for a Casper origin story. The thing is, this is barely even a Casper movie. I'd go as far as to say that Casper is more of a supporting character, despite his name being in the bloody title. You see, A Spirited Beginning is way more about the humans and their lives, which I wouldn't mind if these people were likable and had interesting drama, but that's far from the case. First we have Tim. Now yes, it must be hard raising a child after being widowed, but Tim seems to be kind of half-arsing it. I get that he's swamped from work, but he never sits down to teach his son why it's important for him to commit to his job. He either treats the threat of losing his job as a joke,
I'm gonna sound like your teacher, and your teacher is gonna get me fired, and then you and I, we gotta live under a freeway pass, or just be so,
or grovels for forgiveness from Chris.
I'm sorry about this conference thing. I had an emergency. My office caught on fire.
Yeah, and a gremlin ate my homework.
Look, charbroiled, medium well.
All he needed to do was calmly sit down and explain how his job pays for food and shelter, plus how his workload is kind of out of his power as an employee to the mayor. He comes close, but never fully commits. Tim also ends up avoiding a parent-teacher meeting just because Chris's teacher happens to be a protester. He can't even put aside his beef with this teacher for one evening for his son's sake.
Hey, would that be Sheila Fistograph?
Yeah, I think so.
She's the one behind the Save the Mansion movement.
Chris's teacher?
Mm-hmm.
I should have known. Parent-teacher conference, ha! My Aunt Sally!
But Tim's worst moment actually comes right out of nowhere, like a soap opera twist. You see, when Chris tries to introduce his dad to Casper, Casper is unfortunately not around, so Tim assumes that his son has made up Casper. Then, completely randomly, Tim goes on this rage-fueled, borderline abusive rampage as he tries to dump Chris's hobby projects in the bin. Not only did the film fail to build up Tim being frustrated at Chris's paranormal obsession to the point where he'd have an outburst, but this behavior screams red flags for bad parenting. There's making a whoopsie-daisy as a struggling single dad, and then there's destroying your son's personal property in a fit of anger. This is not to say that I completely feel sorry for Chris though. The film goes to rough extremes to make us sympathize with him, by having him being this lonely outcast who is bullied bullied by other kids and never gets to see his dad. The problem is that he's a loud and entitled brat all the way through the movie. Not once does he try to see things from his dad's perspective, learn how to enjoy his alone time, or think about what's best for the family. He just whines and whines about his dad not catering to his every whim every day. It's hard to completely feel sorry for a kid this selfish and demanding.
Memo. Of course I saw it.
No, Dad, the batting cage! You promised!
That was the mayor!
Heck, Chris even books a parent-teacher meeting with Miss Fistagraph before even asking his dad first, which puts Tim on the spot, and Chris has the cheek to be mad when his dad shows uncertainty.
Since you didn't show up last night, I've kinda had to set up another meeting for today. You know, a parent-teacher one at 4.
4? But I have...
Now, you'd expect Sheila to be the mature and sensible one in all this, which she kind of is, considering that she's one of the only adults criticizing Tim's bad parenting, but she's not that responsible either. She keeps reminding herself to divide her protest movement from her job as a teacher, but she continuously backfires at doing just that.
No, but you've got to stand up for your rights. You can't let people get away with that kind of nonsense. It's like Applegate Mansion. If we don't stand up for it, people are going to tear it down and build some new choke and puke.
Going as far as to visit Chris's home while he's alone, in hopes that she can talk about Applegate Mansion to his dad. A scene that's made even worse by how she's an adult teacher entering her student's house while his parent is out. That's kinda creepy. So yeah, most characters in this film are horribly written caricatures that fail to charm me. But that's only one small part of why A Spirited Beginning is altogether awful. I think a huge issue is that the movie is incredibly disjointed, and can only be described as utter chaos. It wants to cram as many ideas, tropes, and conflicts as it can into one film. I'm not even being melodramatic or hyperbolic here. Like, let me narrow down everything that happens in this movie. Tim having to work extra hard, the protesters outside the mansion, the mayor being concerned about his reputation, Chris wanting more time with his dad, a high demolition man's antics, Kabosh fuming over the missing ghosts, Snively reporting on Casper's adventures, Chris dealing with his bullies, one of the bullies' friends having a change of conscience, Casper's uncle's playing teacher, and then later trying to stop Casper from ruining Scary Ghost's reputation. The rivalry between Chris and Sheila, Sheila becoming a surrogate parent to Chris, Casper's identity crisis, Chris and Casper's bonding friendship, and Chris trying to prove that ghosts exist. The movie has such a hard time balancing everything that it often can't decide what it wants to even be about. I would say that the film focuses the most on the Applegate Mansion, but the movie doesn't exactly find any compelling reasons why I should care about protecting this building. All characters can say is, oh, it's an old landmark that's always existed here. We do learn that it used to belong to the town's founders, but the film barely explores who they even were, just that they were apparently important.
Did you know that in 1805 the Applegates founded this town? Without them, none of us would even be living here.
If anything, I ended up siding with the idea of demolishing it, because it's not that special or interesting, and a shopping mall could bring jobs to the unemployed people in this town. Look, I get the grievance over corporate buildings being an eyesore and resenting commercialization, but why should I care about this mansion if the film won't help me develop any sentimental value for it? I honestly couldn't cheer on Sheila's protest when I had no attachment to this silly mansion. I also didn't like how this movie slogged on for the first hour. Even though there's loads and loads of plots at hand, it's still boringly uneventful for the most part. Tim and Sheila don't get a chance to debate each other because Tim keeps avoiding her. Casper resolves his own arc pretty quickly. Kabosh spends the whole film getting pissing in his lair, and Snively doesn't do anything except observe and report on Casper's activities.
They're teaching Casper their own unorthodox, oh, may I say, illegal, ghostly techniques. They hope to use Casper to put you in your place.
The only real drama in the first hour is the broken father and son relationship, which, as we've explored, is contrived at best and problematic at worst. The movie refuses to raise the stakes until the finale, which means that every single conflict that's been set up is squashed into the last half an hour. Everything we've been waiting to happen gets crammed into this climax, resulting in rushed conclusions and last-minute resolutions. We go from not caring about anything happening to being asked to care about everything before it's time to wrap up.
Are you okay?
Dad, we can't let them over at the mansion!
Yeah, but we can't take it outside. That'll hurt the people out there.
Your dad's right. Go. I'll take care of this.
Now, the aspect of this film that's the most obviously bad has to be the terrible animation effects. I get that the filmmakers had a straight-to-video budget and CGI characters were in their infancy in 1997, but these ghosts move robotically, have awkward expressions, and their transparency barely hides their flaws.
Try for a good visual. Watch me. Heads up, bone bag! Now you.
All right.
Sorry, giraffe imitations are out this year.
Heck, the animation actually reminded me of the CGI animatics that studios use to block out their animation. Not the quality of animation you'd find in a finished film. I get that the artists were disadvantaged. I feel sorry for them, I really do. But it's hard not to be disappointed after the 1995 film pushed CGI standards a little forward.
Man, oh man, them ponies run faster when we go down to Belmont.
Here, Flicka.
So I've lambasted this terrible film to pieces, but surely there's one saving grace, a tiny crumb of something good to nibble on. That award would go to the great Michael McKean and his character Bill. This guy is an entertaining, eccentric nutcase who keeps us consistently invested in his shenanigans. He's the only character who gets any laughs, and it's surprisingly engaging watching him haphazardly plant a bomb in an old falling apart mansion. The only times I wasn't bored out of my mind while watching this film was whenever this crazy militant was on screen.
Tomorrow, that place will be bite-sized.
Do you think you can put this out, please?
Huh? Oh, don't worry about that. Doesn't go boom without this. See that? Harmless as a steak knife.
Except one thing.
What's that?
My office is on fire! Hey! 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 Hey!
Damage control, drop and roll.
To conclude, this is one of the worst prequels I've ever seen. It wants to do a million things at once, but fails to make any of these plots fun, or let them flow together into a strong narrative. It's just a crappy straight-to-video clunker that was quickly produced to cash in on the 1995 film, which is a shame, because there was potential for a decent prequel here. Imagine if the film focused on just Casper's journey, as he questions what it means to be a ghost, and bonds with a little paranormal-obsessed boy called Chris, as they both make memories in the halls of Whipstaff Manor. Only for Casper and his new friend to join forces to protect Whipstaff from an evil force, which pushes Casper to use his powers for good to save the day, and realize that he can be a hero ghost instead of a scary ghost in the end. Sure, that sounds like a very simple premise, but I prefer the charms of humble simplicity over cluttered chaos. So those are my thoughts on Casper: A Spirited Beginning. What did you think of this movie? Let everyone know in the comments below, and don't forget to click that like button. What am I going to be reviewing in the next episode of Jamboree Orange? Well, that's entirely up to my patrons. The options for the next episode's poll include Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, Casper's Haunted Christmas, Miracle on 34th Street, It's a Wonderful Life, Die Hard, and The Search for Santa Paws. Pretty awesome selection, am I right? Don't forget that you have to be a patron in order to access this poll. What is a patron? Let me explain. This is my Patreon. It's a site for my fans to support me financially on through a monthly basis. Those who donate are called patrons. Patrons can donate as much as they want and are welcome to stop donating anytime. In return for their generosity, patrons are given exciting rewards based on their pledge amount. These rewards include early access to my videos before they go up publicly on YouTube, behind the scenes content, their name in the end credits of my videos, a chance to request a review of anything at all, and much more. Very excited to find out what my patrons want to vote for next. Cheerio, folks.